In the previous lesson, we have learned how to display or hide elements conditionally by using vif, velse, or visual directive. Now, another common thing that we might encounter in modern web development is adding or removing classes in certain elements. If you might have used jQuery, then you can do that by making use the addClass method to add classes to certain elements, or removeClass method to remove classes from certain elements. In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to do this stuff in Vue.js. So, in Vue.js, we can make use of a technique called class binding. So, class binding is a mechanism for dynamically applying one or several classes to a particular element. We can use the vbind::class directive followed by argument. Or we can simply write :class equal argument. The argument itself, it can be an object, array, or string. If you want to apply conditionally more than one class to element, then you can pass an object as argument. On the left side is a class name, while the right side is a boolean value. So a class will be applied when the value on the right side is true. On the contrary, if the value is false, then the class will not be applied to the element. Now, for example, I have a div and I bind the class attribute to my classes. The my classes here, for example, can be defined in the data property. Here we have alert with condition true, then alert info class also true, and alert dark is false. Now, when the page is rendered, this div will have alert and alert info classes, because besides alert dark, everything is true. Next, let's see how to pass in an array as an argument. So in array, we can define one or more classes. The difference against object is that all classes that defined will be applied to the element. The following example is almost the same as before. The difference is my classes now contains array. As you can see here, we just define the class name as array element separated by comma. So, as my classes that defined are alert and alert dark, then when the page is rendered, the div element will be look like this: div class alert alert dark. Now, what if we want to pass array as class argument, but we also want to conditionally apply a certain class? We can do that like this. If the condition is met, we specify a class, or if not met, then we define an empty string or another class. If we take a look at this example, here in this div, the class attribute bound to my classes. Then here, if the condition was false, then the class that will be returned is textDark. Otherwise, if the condition was true, then the class that will be returned is textWhite. So when the page is rendered, this div element will be has textDark if we assume the condition is false, or if the condition is true, then this div element will be has textWhite class. Now, if you want to bind only single class to element, then you can pass a string. Here we bind the class attribute to my class. In my class, we can define a class name textCenter like so. When the page is rendered, the div element will be has textCenter class. Okay, that's about class binding. We can dynamically apply one or several classes to a particular element. Now, let's see in action.